so far during his tenure. And let's talk about it. This game is in Athens, though, tomorrow afternoon. And Mike Griffith with a great backdrop there. Mike, what's up? How are you?
Doing great, Paul. Thank you.
So where are you? Are you at Augusta? Did I misread the calendar?
No. We're getting ready for some SEC football this weekend. I mean, you stole the headline. Lane Kiffin trying to get a road win at Georgia. He's not won here. Of course, obviously, the last time he came here, they got thumped pretty good. Got revenge last year. And I appreciate Kiffin putting it out there, saying, hey, this would be another step. These Ole Miss quarterbacks, Trinidad Chambliss, he hasn't played in an environment like this. Now, Kiffin says that in one breath, and then in the next breath he said, yeah, but the crowd's not going to be that's not going to be the big factor. That's not going to do it. And I'm thinking, are you just trying to upset the Sanford Stadium people? Is there a strategy to this? Because they're going to blow it out. I'm telling you, it's going to be wild. It's going to be loud. You know, game day is going to be here. And Kirby Smart's 7-0 against top 10 teams in Sanford Stadium. Kiffin 500, top 25 games.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, there's so much talk here about what happened last week at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It's almost been hard to focus on what is here. Before we get to this week, Griff, just your thoughts on how Georgia once again played poorly early on and then with the help of the officials was able to pull out a win.
You don't. Now, Paul, with the help of the officials, I mean, debatable. I don't know what the commentator said. I do know that if the call on the field stood, that it should have been a touchdown for Georgia because Kyron Jones recovered it and returned it for a touchdown. They blew that call apparently all the way around. I don't know if it crossed the plane or not. I never got a clear angle. It looked like it would have, should have, could have. But then again, there was a punch. What was the control? I mean, we can debate that forever. And then the whole Kirby timeout thing, who cares? They finished the game with a timeout. It was not officiating. Georgia was able to turn that game around. And Hugh Freeze does have a team, Paul, that's capable of beating anybody in the SEC, but he said it best. This team continues to find ways not to win games. I don't know if that's how I lead my post-game press conference if I'm Hugh Freeze, unless I want the $15 million buy. I just want to be fired and get out of here. That's not what I expected him to say. This week against Missouri, they started out as a favorite. Now they're the underdog. Could Hugh Freeze be coaching for his job, Paul? I wonder, because I think it's a capable Auburn team, and we've seen this cycle of firing coaches early. We've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard John Cohn's interview or read about it, and he said that as long as his car starts in the morning, apparently Hugh Freeze will have a job. So Mike, let's all kidding aside, get to this game in terms of you mentioned Lane Kiffin. He's always a big player whenever his team is involved. Just kind of lay out your thoughts on the game and what's going to move the needle the most.
Well, I mean, it's a chess match, right? I mean, Lane Kiffin's offense snaps the ball in 22.9 seconds. That's 4 seconds faster than Georgia. So what's the relevance? You got a 45-second clock. They're snapping the ball while there's still a live mic in the quarterback's ear. And Kiffin has the ability to move this team around and get them in the right formation, the right look against a Kirby defense. And so you're going to see that chess match playing out as Trinidad Chambliss tries to make sure that he gets Ole Miss in the proper plays and can execute and run that up-tempo offense to keep Georgia locked into whatever package is on the field. They like to score fast. Conversely, I think the pivotal point in the game is how well does Georgia run the football, Paul? Because you know the best way to stop an offense is to keep it off the field, and Georgia has a tendency to grind it out with these long, boring drives. But this week, that will be a thing of beauty if you're Georgia, because you're keeping Kiffin in that dynamic offense on the sideline. So can Georgia grind it out? You know, they went for over 220 yards rushing on Alabama, and Alabama actually ranks ahead of Ole Miss in rush defense. So to me, the winning edge for Georgia is having a better ground game, being able to control the clock, and keeping Ole Miss off the field. Also, Trinidad Chambliss has not played in an environment like this. I do think it's going to be different. I do think the crowd will play a factor, and I do think Georgia will win.
So, but I'm struggling to understand Georgia, though, because, Griff, I agree with a lot of what you said, but can you figure out why they continue to – because the problem they're having this year, they had last year with a different quarterback.
Yeah, you're right. They played just well enough to win. And to your point, you know, they give up these early touchdowns. This goes all the way back to the Texas game last year where they were either tied or trailed at halftime for, 8 or 9 straight games. And then Kentucky, they broke the streak right back to, business as usual, trailing Auburn at halftime. This has been a thing. However, so has the resiliency. and so has the comebacks. But that margin for error, it really shrinks. And when you play a number 5 ranked team like Ole Miss, and look, I get, Washington State was last Saturday and their kids didn't care and they didn't sing in the locker room and Kiffin didn't get the game ball. He wanted to treat it as, I understand the psychology of that. That's still a really dangerous team. They did beat LSU. We thought that was a quality win at the time. They did beat Kentucky by a touchdown. I guess that's a good thing. But the bottom line is Lane Kiffin is a good coach with a dynamic quarterback that leads the SEC in yards per completion and yards per attempt. This is an explosive football team, and they can score points in bunches if Georgia doesn't control the clock. You're asking me, how does Georgia keep doing it? Gunnar Stockton plays just well enough. Take a look at their fourth down conversion rate. It's 70%. You don't want to make a living going for it on fourth down, I guess, unless you're UCLA trying to beat Penn State. But that is not going to continue to win games for Georgia. But so far, they were able to eke out a win against Tennessee, a game that could have gone either way. They lost against Alabama, a game that could have gone either way. And then they were able to rally on the Plains despite a really great crowd at Jordan-Hare Stadium and pull that one out. Georgia's sitting here 5-1. Realistically, they could have 3 losses. But to your point, Gunnar Stockton doing just enough, Kirby Smart, just enough adjustments, just enough talent for the Georgia Bulldogs to sit here 5-1. I think they got to like where they're sitting right now, all things considered, Paul.
Mike, let me get you to articulate on some of the other things that you mentioned a minute ago. You mentioned Hugh Freeze could be coaching for his job. Curious for you to follow up on that.
Yeah, I didn't ask him that. Steve Moulton from Huntsville actually asked Hugh Freeze that question a couple of weeks ago on the SEC teleconference, and he relied on his faith. He's relying on a higher power. He really didn't seem to be too fazed by the question. I think he understands the dynamics of these coaching salaries and how much money they're paid to win games. They also know how much they're paid when they get fired. And being fired isn't the worst thing in the world these days if you're James Franklin making close to $50 million or, the buyouts that could be waiting Hugh Freeze or Billy Napier. I mean, yeah, you feel bad they didn't work it out, but then they go home and cash the check and they're living pretty good and there'll be another coaching opportunity. The question I have is, who's next? Who are you trying to hire? Not everybody can. Paul, are we a believer in Kirk Cignetti now? I mean, I got to admit, he shut me up. When they went on the road and beat the Oregon Ducks, I said, okay, I'm a believer now. I've seen Indiana do it against a quality team. This is a former Saban guy. Can somebody offer him enough money to come to the SEC? To me, that would seem like the most obvious coaching candidate to come down and be an impact coach. Who knows? Maybe he'll even bring some of his players with him. That's what he did at Indiana when he brought several of those James Madison players. So brought the culture with him. That may be kind of a new thing. The coaching carousel, though, I do think it's a little out of control. I wonder how long before it starts to affect the buyout numbers in the coaches' salaries.
And you mentioned Napier as well. Most people think this is a foregone conclusion. I couldn't help but laugh this week when I read where Scott Strickland was meeting with boosters as if the problem just happened this week. What do you make out of the Napier situation?
Well, you've had a chance to sit down with Scott Strickland and talk about this issue before in past years. And, Billy Napier is the guy that, you got to drive a stake in this guy. Every time you think he's going to be fired, he comes off a bye week and wins impressively like he did against Texas. I don't think you fire him for losing at A&M. That may end up being the best team in the SEC unless they turn into Texas A&M and fade, which has kind of been their history. But maybe this team's cut a little bit differently. I think they might have a little bit more of a challenge than people expected Arkansas. But point being, does Florida want to fire Billy Napier or put the wheels in motion before he can save his job again? Because it appears that he has a ceiling. Now, I will say I have to qualify it this year. DJ Lagway clearly was not healthy at the beginning of the season. We saw those 5 interceptions in that 10-point loss to LSU. Didn't look real good against Miami, which I think right now is probably the best team in the country at this stage of the season. But then the impressive win against Texas. So can the Gators put it all together? Can they make a run? Surely they'll beat Mississippi State. And then they play Georgia in the cocktail party. Remember, last year, Florida was winning that game at halftime, and they were winning that game when DJ Lagway went out with an injury. They do have a really good defense. They could force Gunnar Stockton to make some plays downfield. So I think there's a lot of drama yet to play out. I think a lot of these matchups, so intriguing, Paul. You look at the third Saturday in October, my goodness, Tennessee and Alabama. Alabama's had 3 emotional wins in a row. Tennessee doesn't look like they've been playing their best football. Who's going to play the best in Tuscaloosa? What are the playoff ramifications of that one? So many different things right now for us to keep our eye on. It's been a really exciting season. Got to think, though, ultimately in games like this, I like to go with the best quarterback. And I think Ty Simpson right now is the best quarterback in the SEC. I've been impressed with him and certainly Kalen DeBoer and his coaching. And the defense has done just enough. Not sure that Tennessee can run the ball well enough to sustain the kind of drives they're going to need to beat the Crimson Tide.
Griff, always great to see you. And before you go, I want to make sure you read those pool rules behind you, because I don't want you to be drinking and get into trouble.
I'll try not to. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that.
Notice there wasn't a lifeguard on duty either for Griff, but we have one here, and we will continue. We're here for the next 3 hours and 45 minutes. A lot to do on what's already been a busy afternoon. A great player from Texas A&M later. Some other guests will drop by, and your phone calls.